What's up, preppers? Welcome to unscheduled video. This was just because I was angry today and I decided I wanted to go on live, and Brian said I'll come on and make sure you don't do anything stupid. But I'm less angry now. I've calmed down a bit. How you doing, Brian? Scottish
All
Prepper
good, mate.
73, by the way. Sorry, I should say your name so people know. I was just trying to turn the tags on, but I don't know where it's gone to. Yeah, you all good? You still in your living your life in your luxury air-conditioned hotel room?
Mate, the struggle is real. Sometimes the steak, they don't cook it properly. You've just got to
Yeah.
tough it through it. Got to be brave.
Hard life. When everyone's worried about the cost of living, Brian's eating steak. In the comments, we have Kelly. How you doing? Kelly's a channel member. It's always appreciated. Elusive Dartmoor, Miss Worm, the moderator who will kick your ass if you're inappropriate. Hi, how you doing? CJ says, read the things Keir Starmer said he's going to change due to recent events. We'll talk about that shortly. Kelly says, this topic is really scary to me. I am sad and angry. Yes, I do apologize. It was a very clickbaity thumbnail, wasn't it, Brian?
You're a terrible person. We talk about people like you.
I am the problem with YouTube.
He's went
Right,
to the dark side.
I'll put a star where I'm at to in the comments, so I'll try not to lose track, and I'll try and get through as many comments as you can. You got any questions, pop them in. If it's a question, I will try and highlight it and get to it. So yeah, we'll talk about that first because it's been brought up. Keir Starmer did his, was it an emergency press conference he called it today? I found it odd. Now, here comes the tinfoil hat from the very get-go. I found it odd it took the right wing rioting to initiate that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the riots we've had in Leeds and all over the place, nothing's been done, nothing's been said. Is that just a culmination and it was the final straw, or is it because it's the right wing, Brian?
He's playing to the masses. He's playing to the narrative of the day. So if it's politically expedient to throw one group or demographic under the bus for the sake of political expediency, well, two MFs, there you go, under the wheels. He's a politician. He's got no problem doing what he thinks going to play well to the plebs.
But I mean, he's calling them people right wing, and I was watching some of the footage, and some of the people being arrested is like 60-year-old Doris who lives down the road. You know what I mean? She's not some skinhead crazy football nut. That's it's just insane.
There's lots of parts to it, though. I mean, people are upset, they're angry, they want to lash out, and they're scared, and they're watching uncontrolled immigration. Then they're adding 1 and 1, making 5, and blaming somebody else because something bad's happened. So somebody's always going to get the blame.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, you've also got people jumping on the bandwagon who are arseholes, for want of a better word, and they're stirring up trouble. So people that are legitimately upset, they're trying to express it in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
The message is lost. So,
yeah.
And no forgetting, there's a tragedy. 3 young kiddies been killed here.
I know, yeah, it's which is horrendous, and you know our thoughts and prayers go out to their family. It's what a horrible thing to actually happen, but people should be understandably angry at that. Let's have a quick look here for context, just for everybody else, at what's been going on. So this is why we won't be able to monetize, because they're going to shout at me for loads of stuff on here now. This was Leeds. We won't have the sand on. I think then guys must have just needed to dispose of a fridge freezer because the council don't do collections. But you know, this was the riot going on in Leeds, which was earlier on. Was it a week or two ago? And that was over the kids getting taken away by social services. I mean, they're there to protect kids. We had the London protest going on. Ooh, without the sound. Spot the difference in the London protests straight away is the police came kitted up, ready for a fight.
And punching lumps out of him, kneeing him in the face and everything.
Yeah. And in Leeds, even with the riots going on, even like 2 days in, the police weren't turning up in the riot gear, trying not to antagonize and all this, but they looked like they were up for this from the start. I mean, that's just crazy. Obviously, Southport's been happening. Yeah, I don't condone burning police vehicles and stuff like that.
No.
But who's responsible for it escalating to that point is the question, I suppose. And then recently, we had this going on as well, down south, and yeah, it's just gone absolutely crazy. Let's close that off for a minute. What's going on? It's just the right wing gets the entire police force in riot gear out from the very onset. I say right wing. It's not right wing, right? The other communities get the benefit of the doubt by the looks of it. Am I just seeing things here? Am I paranoid, Brian?
No, but you're not allowed to say anything. It's literally like the kids' book, the Emperor's New Clothes. You've got somebody running about naked, and nobody wants to point out there's a problem apart from this small child who says the Emperor's got no clothes on. This is the same. There's a lot of things wrong in the world. We've got a broken country. We've got lots of cultures that instead of being encouraged to gel, there's lots of people encouraging them to pull apart, right? There's no integration. All we've got is little clusters of communities that don't get on that well. And we don't seem to have any policies or scenarios that are helping that. It just seems to be things that are making it divisive and pitting people against one another, which is never going to help.
Yeah. The what he's saying in the speech as well, I think Kelly's just put a comment in there, restrict people's movements, ? On there. The way he was talking about another group of people who are not from that area causing these issues.
And to an extent, he's got a point. There was people who took advantage of this situation to cause shit, cause a fight, and just general mayhem. You could argue who sponsored them to do that and who provoked it, but his speech was a contradiction of crap. He said in one hand that they're going to be robust with policing. They're going to encourage police to take robust action. Well, it was only last week coppers were getting attacked and they did take robust action, and then they neglected to show all of the video, demonised the copper for defending himself and his firearm, and then only backed him up after the actual video came out. So you either want robust policing or you don't. And then he's also saying, we're not going to put more police in place at the moment because we can't. But don't worry, we're going to have policing talking to one another and using resources from all over the country. Excuse the language, but surely to fuck, that's what we're doing anyway. I mean, come on. That's a new thing. If that's a new thing, somebody's missed a memo.
Yeah. Definitely. It's sharing resources should be a given, right? And
it's nonsense.
The problem you've got is if we have more demonstrations, I'll say demonstrations because it was a bloody demonstration. The police turned it into a riot. We have more demonstrations down there, and they suddenly need to redirect all the police from other places. I don't know about you, but like in my town, there's not enough police on the streets as it is.
The policing numbers, unfortunately, have been reduced to criminal levels. They've shut down police stations all over the place to save money. If your house is broken into, somebody steals a car, here's a crime number. No fucks given, excuse the language, but we're after 10 o'clock, so I'll have an event. I remember when the London riots were going on, I was at the services at Gretna, and there was 10 police vans from Police Scotland that pulled in, and they were all going down to help. So Mr. Fear Warmer, our wonderful new Prime Minister, he's not doing anything new. We've already done it in the past. We should be doing it now, and we should have more bobbies on the beat anyway. But that's a tiny part of the problem.
Yeah, because he's announced a new policing unit to tackle violent disorder, but it's not a new unit, right? It's
No,
repurposing other people. So
it's wooden dollars. We're just moving names and assets from one group to another. There's nothing new here. Nothing.
I mean, if you were part of the police force, you got to be scared, right, to take action. These guys,
They
you just
can't
saw them.
win.
You just saw them being aggressive then, but in this case scenario, it might get forgotten. But then in the airport scenario, there's an uproar about it. You know what I mean? So you don't know what to do as a policeman,
You
right?
get they've degraded their terms, conditions, their pension, their salary. They've lowered the height limits. It used to be to have a 6 foot behemoth, and now you've got somebody that looks like Charlie Brown looking up at you saying, "Come quietly." Where is the physical deterrent there? I'm all for inclusive and equality and all the rest of it, but if somebody's chasing you down the street with an axe, I want a 6 foot bear turning up with a taser, not a 5 foot curly haired young lady at 19 years old who's saying, "Please stop." I mean, come on.
You put in,
It's
yeah.
not,
I mean, it's not a bad statement to make. It's putting them at risk. At one point, you could never have a cop on his own in a police car. Now I see it all the time.
I
One
feel
of my
sorry for them. Like,
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. Well, it was quite a while ago. I mean, police stations closing is not a new thing. 6-7 years ago, they closed a police station near where I used to live. It was in the process of closing, but it was still a police station. Had one of those phones outside, right? My friend was getting jumped outside. It wasn't in the process, but he saw the people coming that way. He knew what was going on, and it was a situation where he knew what was going to happen. He picked the phone up and said, "This is going to happen. Let me in." She said, "No, I'm sorry. I'm on my own in here. I'll send a car from Wigan," which was like 40 miles away.
gee whiz, I wonder what happened then.
Yeah, well, he woke up in a hospital bed. Absolutely insane. But yeah, it's only getting worse. Now, I'll go to the comments before I really scare people off this stream. Paul Thomas says, "Start buying a stab-proof vest and anti-slash gloves. We're going to need them." Funnily enough,
Already got them.
It's the first time in 20 years of prepping I'm looking at body armor, and that should tell you enough right there. Elusive Dartmoor's got his priorities though. I worried I've only got 4 frappe pies left. Got to get more. There you go.
Time to panic.
It doesn't matter what's going on in the world. Make sure you got your frappe bentos. Kelly says, "Yes, Mike, the Leeds riots, the police were wearing trainers and ran away. Yesterday, they had full riot gear and were arresting Nana." There you go. Exactly. That's it's. And there's footage now. If anybody doesn't know, check out 2C TV. He's a great source. He's a free media journalist, but he's on YouTube, and he got some footage, and it's recording the police as they're going into this crowd in London, and you hear them say, "Just pick someone random and arrest them." So they were just literally out of this crowd of protesters, they were just picking random people to arrest them. Obviously, scare factor, so hopefully the rest would disperse. But yeah, scary.
And do you know what? As shitty as that is, it's a fact of life. Sometimes you've got to shoot a hostage.
Wow, dark.
It's true though. I mean, if you've got a volatile situation, you've not got the numbers to control the crowd.
At the time. Watch the footage. The police have cordoned them in. There's a girl that wants to leave and go home and go to the toilet, and they're stopping her from moving.
Oh, the famous kettling.
Kettle, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's what they've done. And that's the situation. They decided to go in and arrest them after the fact. They could have dispersed them ages ago. During the 1980s, I blamed the riots and rioters on being disenfranchised and not listened to. Not saying that now, are they? Yeah, well, there you go.
No.
Yeah, same here. But I mean, there's sick people in the world. We saw it with the firearms ban when they banned handguns. So there's sick people involved in that as well up in Scotland. So it's unfortunate, but yeah. Why don't the Celts from Parliament and break away and all of this and start a new government? There you go. I assume he's on about Scottish independence there.
I don't really see how that makes a difference, to be fair, because Assholes respect no borders or no governments.
This is very true. This is very true. And to be honest, we're probably going to be pilfering half your police force to sort out London and Manchester and the major cities soon. Johnny says Labour is a big state government protest and collective assembly will be outlawed now unless it's approved. There you go.
They're halfway there already. You've got to apply for a license for demonstrations and things.
Yeah. You've got to be coordinate with the police and that. But the thing is, the right wing do that, and you see it on their documentaries and stuff like that. That they'll sit there and they'll go around where they're going to walk with the police, and they'll compromise and stuff like that. And then I believe there's been another march today of Islam celebration march. I've not seen the full details on that. Anybody's got any more details on that, then pop them in. So
can I give you a hypothetical? Sorry, on you go.
I was just going to say Nigel Farage had a good point to say on the our fearless leader. He said he has not got an earthly clue on how to deal with the violence over the recent days. And he said, law and order, folks on our streets breaking down. This prime minister hasn't got an earthly clue how to deal with it. We need to start getting tough. What were you going to say before we step into that?
It kind of relates to that anyway. So say you had a group or a political leaning, let's call it right wing, whatever you want to call it. Anyone, doesn't matter. And you're trying to demonize them. The quickest way to do that would be put in supporters of your own leanings into that group and encourage the crowd to, piss about, throw bricks, throw bottles. It would only take half a dozen people. It would only take half a dozen people to turn that crowd into a mob. That's all it takes. Now, I'm not suggesting that's what did happen, but it's not out with the realms of possibility, and it wouldn't be the first time.
Yeah. It's interesting. There's lots of conspiracy theories going on with it all. So this part of this speech obviously was his measures. Now this facial recognition thing, you've got some thoughts on this, Brian? Do you want to mention what you were saying before about this? What do you think there's going to happen with all of that?
Well, big state is a big thing in China at the moment. So they've got facial recognition cameras and systems in the now. So they'll track where you are when you leave your home, you go in your home, your social credit scores all tied into it. Even if you were to put a baseball cap on, cover your face with a bandana, the AI technology that the cameras are reporting to, it analyses your gait, how you walk is unique to you as a person, like a fingerprint, and it can tell who you are just how you walk. So you've now got randomly crazy scenarios like people put stones in their shoes, fitting the wrong size shoe in one foot to throw their gait off.
Yeah.
If that's the way we're going, George Orwell will be turning in his grave.
Well, yeah. 1984 is definitely not that far away. I think we're past that, to be fair, haven't we? We're probably under more surveillance than they were.
Well, you think about it, the camera systems are already there. It's only the back office part of it that's doing the analysing of the footage that would be the issue.
Mm-hmm. That's all digital now. So I worked for a company that did number plate recognition, ANPR. And no, it wasn't for the speed cameras before you all start getting on my back. But the technology there is machine learning. So it's neural net. So, and it's just constantly improving. And there's something called YOLO, which is you only look once. And at the start, it could recognize car, man, dog. But the more it sees it, the more it recognizes different things like a weapon, stuff like that. And this technology is just it's like AI, it's self-driven. And with even with that 3-4 years ago, if I had your reg plate, I could follow your car from one side of the country to the other with very few black spots. And that was several years ago, So it just shows if they add that into the face, we're all going to be going around going like this. That's how you apparently feel.
If I do that, I'd look like a St. Bernard with slabbers flying everywhere.
That was a Four Lions reference, anti-surveillance. That's what that is. So let's let's feed the fear mongering side of YouTube here. Lots of people have said stuff like this before, and I've always dismissed it and said that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. But now we need police, and they're going to rush through 10,000 asylum applications of working age, able-bodied people. Could that be a stipulation of, well, that's your police force, right?
So how could they possibly do effective background checks on people that are burning the passport at the door?
They couldn't, but they could have them as, I don't know, assistant police service, or they'd come up with some way of using that manpower, right?
There's ways of using the manpower. I mean, I'm all for people earning a citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't they join the military then? Do a 5-year stint in the Army, Navy, Air Force, whatever it is, to get citizenship. Or here's a better idea. Don't let anybody in the country, like every other country that's got immigration rules, if you come in here and you don't have permission, well, I'm sorry, you're a criminal. You broke the law. And I've got nothing for sympathy before anybody slates me for people fleeing war zones. But unless France has suddenly turned into a war zone again since the 40s, they're not fleeing for their lives from the French. I mean, their cooking's not great, but they don't have to run across the beach, right?
Yeah.
There's no risk to their life.
Yeah, I mean, we do have agreements in place where if there's a war-torn country, we take in a fair percentage of that. Yeah. And that's not a problem. When we had Syrian refugees come in, they integrated quite well. It's the boatloads of, like you say, people coming over, traveling through 3 or 4 perfectly well-established companies to come into a country illegally. And I don't even see the appeal anymore. The cost of living's gone through the roof. Somebody needs to get that message over to them. It fucking costs a fortune to live here.
That's an economic choice, not a safety choice at that point. And
yes,
like yourself, I mean, we spoke about this before. I don't want to see any kids floating in dinghies and in the water and losing their life. I don't want to see anybody being killed or hurt, right? I don't. But by the same token, you can't have potentially criminals coming into the country that could hurt or harm you or yours. And I don't think that's bad by saying that. And if it's bad, then I'm sorry, that makes me a terrible person. But I believe that. I think there's got to be a rule of law.
Surely. There's got to be a tipping point. There's got to be. We're obviously, you know, the election's gone, the politics have done, the vote's been cast. We are where we are for the next X amount of years. But no matter which government got in, no matter which government was in, even if the Conservatives were still in power for another 4 or 5 years, we're going to hit a tipping point at some point. And we're already getting there because the cost of housing, the cost of, you know, my rent's doubled in the last 2-3 years. And that's probably even more so, tripled with some people. So it's insane. And there's no wonder the little things now. And I'm not saying the thing in Southport was a little thing at all. It's a horrible thing. But when it happened, so I'll mention Dunblane. When that happened in Dunblane, and all them kids lost their lives, and it was a guy with handguns, they did the handgun ban and stuff like that, and there was upset parents, and people were rightly angry and stuff like that. But it wasn't to the scale we saw the riots the other day, right? And surely it's because of the way we're living at the moment. I'm pissed off at my taxes. I'm pissed off at the cost of housing. I'm pissed off at the cost of food. And then what you're going to do now, okay, we're going to just, you know, really annoy you a little bit more, keep poking the bear. How long before the whole country's in revolt?
Well, here's the problem. There's no way to win, right? Because the party of common sense doesn't exist. Nobody wants to call out problems for what they are and have a realistic solution, because they're terrified of being labelled this, that, or the next thing, or things being ascribed to them that because they've got an opinion that makes them this or that. Listen, choices are choices. Things have to be done. Decisions have to be made. The country's broken. The country's also broke, right? It doesn't make you a bad person or a terrible politician to say, listen, if you choose to sit in the house and you don't want to work, we ain't going to give you money for Sky TV, cigarettes and smoking and all the rest of it, right? Because you've made a choice. But what we will do is, we'll give you an EBT card like the States, and you can buy food on it, and that's it. and we'll pick you up at 8 o'clock in the morning, and you'll pick up dog shit in the park, and then at 2 o'clock we'll show you how to write out a CV and make sure you apply for jobs. Help people. I'm all for helping people, but help yourself. The country's broken.
Yeah. Help themselves. Definitely. It's broken, but very few people see a way to fix this without rocking the boat, and no political party coming in once they start getting that big fat paycheck want to rock the boat, right?
And there's your big problem, huh?
Yeah, definitely. It all boils down to money at the end of the day. Mark says, what's next? Digital IDs. Will this government punish protesters in the same way as the Canadian truckers? Digital ID.
About that.
I definitely think digital ID is a thing. Sorry, go on, Brian.
I don't know about the Canadian truckers. I don't know what happened to them, so I can't really answer that. But you've already got a digital ID. You've got a digital footprint, everything you do, whether it's online banking, your salary going in, any bill that you buy or pay. We've all got a digital ID. It's just that you don't actually have it in a card.
Yeah. Unless you're completely off grid. And to be completely off grid these days is practically impossible. Especially somewhere like we live in the UK, there's not much free land that you can go and be completely off grid. So yeah, we're all in some sort of system somewhere. We're definitely on a list after this live, Brian. So there's 65 people watching. So thank you for being here. Don't forget to hit like. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. It's not all doom and gloom. We have some fun stuff as well. Ams said they've reduced police numbers while importing more people. More people equals more crime. It's just common sense. I mean, yeah, I couldn't agree more.
I agree to an extent. More people equals more crime if you allow the wrong people in. If you've got realistic immigration controls and you say, look, you're not getting in the country unless you've got a trade or a profession that we can't source locally and organically, right?
Yeah.
That's letting the right people in. However, if you've got people burning passports that have just come through 8 countries, and I'm not demonising one section, right? There's lots of problems, but this is pertinent to that because it says more people. If you don't know who they are, you don't know what skill sets they've got, you don't know what convictions they've got, then that's a problem that's going to exactly be like this scenario. But if you get the right people in that have got the right skill sets, then they enhance the economy. You don't need lots of police then, or you don't have to increase the police numbers if you're not letting murderers, rapists, nutters, and I mean, that is common sense. Let in the right people, don't let in the wrong people.
Yeah. Even without the numbers coming in, the numbers is an obvious one. You know, the more people, the more police. It's simple. The more numbers, the more medical you need. The more fire service you need. It's always going to be the case. I mean, that's not the only issue, though, right? The more the cost of living goes up, the more people become unemployed, jobless. The more people are on benefits, and as much as people think, oh, you know, benefits are living the life of luxury, that's starting to slip now. But what do? What are they going to do? They're going to resort to crime, right? Very few of them will hustle for extra money. They will rob somebody instead.
Miss Worm, that's exactly what I was talking about earlier.
Yeah, Miss Worm agrees with you. Yeah, they need to stop recruiting 5'0" fat women. If I've got a nutter in my house, I want a 6'3" bruiser turn up. There we go. But I mean, the worse the police get, the more vigilante justice will start to appear, right? Because there's situations now where I would ring friends that I know over police.
I don't know if I'd go that far because ultimately it's last man standing who's going to court, which would be you. I would.
No, I just meant to calm situations down. You know, they're good talkers, my friend.
I see. Social workers, as it were.
Yeah.
So social workers aside, and their unique counselling skills with the Chicago Red Sox with their functional bats, I'm guessing.
No, it's just a friendly baseball team. Carry on.
4,000 bats, but no balls.
There's so many jokes there. We'll just skirt past that one.
Yeah, it must be an Olympic boxing team then. That's a separate issue.
Too soon.
That's what she or he said. So, I mean, I don't want to get into a police bashing session because I've got nothing but the the utmost respect for the police, the fire service, ambulance. I think they do a fantastic job with. I mean, it's unsafe for them if they've got limited numbers and they're putting themselves at risk because they've got lower numbers than they should have. That's no right. And in between that, you've got some little arsehole putting a camera up in your face and pointing at you when you're trying to do your job. I wouldn't like that. I don't think you should, just because you're allowed to doesn't make it right. The key phrase of "don't be a dick" springs to mind, right?
Yeah. 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 We've all watched them videos. Interestingly, Johnny says policing by consent does not work if the public do not support the police. They are losing public support. And this is the problem, right? When we see things like that guy getting the living crap beat out of him by several coppers, there's going to be a lot of police that have joined and want to be there to do good and to make the streets safer. But a minority of them will destroy that trust very quickly.
I was talking to somebody at work a couple of weeks ago, and she said something that rang true. Very few people go to work to do a bad job, right? And that's the police, you, me, and everybody else. No, very few of us decide to turn up one day and go, "I'm going to do my job utterly shit," right? But you've got bad apples who'll slip through the net and everything. And unfortunately, the police force is it's not going to be unique.
Yeah, yeah. It's not just the UK, it's an international issue. My neighbour attacked my roommate, and the cop who came to the door was really pretty woman, 22 years, maybe 5'4". I've had one of those police women turn up, but she didn't arrest. She took her clothes off for money. Very, very nice, but I was using hammer drills that were heavier than her.
So many jokes, so many ways to get banned. Safest thing is to say nothing at this point, I think.
If you notice the banner going across the bottom of the screen, guys, we are not monetizing this stream because it's not worth, this crap I'll get for it.
I mean, there's like 60 odd people in the chat. See what you think.
Yeah. 72 people watching I've got now. Don't forget to hit like, get your questions and comments in. Kelly, I suspect much of this unrest is both coordinated and used as an opportunity for yet more control of the populace, more surveillance, more censorship. Speaking of control, this is literally the prelude to increased stop and search, more police powers in that respect, the facial recognition and surveillance we've already talked about. Are you happy with all these? It's a weird situation because I'm not a fan of stop and search as a personal thing, but then again, I'd rather the streets be safer. So it's a very difficult one.
It's a balancing act. I'll give him his due, right? He did actually say on his news thing today that he doesn't think bringing more policies and procedures and powers in place is the way to go. He thinks we should actually just use the ones that we've got properly and appropriately. Okay, we're on the same page then. For once, I actually agree with that. And if you've got, I'm trying a PC way to put this, right? Screw it. If you've got people that are pink with blue dots that are stabbing people in South London, right? It is not racist it's not racist or bad to target the blue guy with the pink dots who predominantly is running about stabbing people, right? That's an effective use of limited resources to target a known problem, right? The same as 40 years ago, if I'd come over from Ireland, right? No offence, Dan. If I'd come over from Ireland and I had an alarm clock that was sticking in my suitcase, I could, and I'm expecting it to be searched and I'd be targeted as an individual, unfairly or not, right? The sad fact is, people coming from that place at that time, there's a known terrorism risk.
Yeah.
I would rather that was done than there was an explosion or an incident. So I think it's trying to strike that happy balance. And it's all right me saying that until I'm the person being stopped and searched in front of friends or family and you feel degraded and you're upset and you're angry. So it's a difficult one.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. It's racial profiling, and the problem you're always going to have with that, any sort of racial profiling to any race or any culture, it's going to cause massive upset and kickoff and
Of course it is.
riots and protests and stuff like this. So it's, where do you draw that line? How did they get away with? How do they make stop and search effective without wasting 75% of their time stopping people they know are not even a threat? Because that's what they're going to have to do.
If you've got an effective intelligence and you know the police have got intelligence-led operations, they know who's doing this, they know who's doing that. They just lack the numbers and the bodies and the resources to do it effectively. Or the knife crime thing would be solved. But they'd need to swamp areas with bodies, do lots of stop and search until they realise that, you know what, I can't operate effectively in here in a criminal manner. I'm going to have to either stop it, diversify into something else dodgy until they catch up with it, or whatever. But they would need to swamp areas with bodies or use intelligence-led operations to try and reduce the issue that they're targeting.
And with stop and search, that's going to need more manpower, right? Because you're not going to, that 5'2" woman that we're talking about is not going to be able to stop and search that 6'5" massive, skinhead who might have something in his back pocket, because he's just not going to cooperate, right? And then they're going to have to get another van down and 3 more people, and it's just going to, we'll go back to the same issue of manpower.
You need bodies to put somebody down effectively without hurting them. The simple fact is, if you've got one-on-one, it's very difficult to restrain somebody without hurting them on your own, unless you're willing to do damage to that individual, which they don't want to do. So you need to swamp them with bodies for their protection and the officer's protection. So you need bodies.
There's a distinct advantage in the States. What do you think? Do you think it would work over here to arm all the police?
Well, here's the thing. We had 2 armed officers and then 1 or 2 that were unarmed. The 2 guys that were attacking them didn't give a shit that they'd firearms and tasers. They just went for it anyway. So then the coppers were trying to safeguard the firearms. People have got different opinions what happened when he kicked him, kneed on him after the event. Personally, I don't have an issue with it. He didn't know the situation was ended. We're sitting in armchairs judging the guy later, and unfairly, I think, at that. So in that scenario, having guns didn't help, because they weren't going to draw it and shoot them. Whereas in the States, if they felt the firearm has been compromised, well, you're going to need a body bag. We've got a different culture. We're very anti-gun in the UK, and I don't think we need to arm everybody. But certainly, I'm all for giving them all a taser. 100% give them all a taser.
Yeah. CS spray, pepper spray.
Well, they've got pava spray. They've got pava spray anyway.
Yeah. I mean, do you support them all having that?
Yeah, but if you've got somebody that's out their tits on drugs and they don't feel pain, they're hyped up, they're on amphetamines or whatever, you can spray them whatever you like. It be as well as being Lynx or a tin of Brute. They ain't stopping. So,
well, I mean, that can happen with anything. I've seen somebody not stop with 2 tasers on them. I've seen somebody get shot 3 times and still come towards the officer. You know what I mean? It's that's the nature of the beast, right? Johnny says, "Yet passport control. The automatic system doesn't recognize me without my glasses on." This is this problem we've got. It's all right saying we'll do all this thing, but will the technology keep up? Is the question.
They might be really bad glasses. It might look like Dame Edna.
Yeah. It's his Clark Kent glasses. They completely just change who he is.
I think we need a picture of before and after to properly judge Johnny.
Email me pictures with and without glasses, Johnny. Claws as well. Not just glasses, please, for the love of God.
You've changed.
Kelly, how can illegal immigrants not be breaking the law? It doesn't make sense. Yeah, true. Yeah, they are. In a sense, they are illegal. It's in the name, right?
They are breaking the law, but nobody wants to concentrate on that. That they are breaking the law. They're not here with permission or consent.
Where do you stand at your taxes being put up in the next budget, Brian? And then obviously at the same time, 10,000 people housed in 4-star hotels and being fed. It's a fucking loaded question. Get some of that.
I think unless they're very, very careful. We saw what Liz Truss did. She went off half-cocked, screwed the markets and took thousands of pounds out of people's pensions because she spooked the markets. The markets are watching, and Labour better be very careful what they're doing.
Interesting, the stats. I saw this the other day, but Johnny's just mentioned we have an official population of 67 million. Supermarkets estimate the amount of food they sell as being 10 million plus more. That could all be preppers, though, right?
Well, I have put on a few pounds lately, so I'm probably adding a few onto that 67 million alone.
Listen, based on the amount of Frey bentos they've sold around Scotland, they think there's at least another 1 million people there.
And let's not forget the wonderful taste of Pepsi.
Oh, we're not sponsored by Pepsi.
So far.
So far. We're not sponsored by anyone by this one, I'm telling you. This one's getting deleted by YouTube shortly, I'm sure. Bans now. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk of the crossbow bans with the incident that happened with that poor family. But obviously, that's gone quiet. Everything that we're seeing with all the footage that we showed before is machetes, knives. Now, machetes aren't banned. People are very confused about what's banned in the UK. Zombie knives. Zombie knives are a classification of their own. They're designed to be, to mutilate, and they have some sort of... They can also be classed as zombie knife if they've got some sort of graphic down the side that says, like, kill, 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 or blood, or, anything like that. And curved swords over 50 centimeters. That's what's banned. So you can have a machete. Legally own one. Running around the streets is another story. But is that going to change now? I'm sorry, before you answer that, I need to show you the funniest machete clip.
Eminem.
I mean, this should not be commonplace anywhere in the UK.
Saw that. Is it wrong? I was hoping he fell off and got ran over with a fucking lorry.
No, not at all. I think we're all hoping the same thing. But how is that now the norm in the UK?
That is the norm. And also people standing by watching whilst gangs of kids and adults go into a shop, rip phones off, help themselves to bottles of wine and vodka, and walk out the door, right?
Mm-hmm.
And do you know why they walk out the door? Because if any of the shopkeepers or staff dare to touch them, there's a fairly good chance they're the ones that will get an assault conviction or stabbed.
Yeah. Security are useless in the supermarkets now.
They've no chance of doing anything. If they go hands on, right? If they do anything, they're looking at a court case and dismissal. So it's another example of how things aren't working. They're just not working.
Yeah, but that's the training they get as well. Yeah, any of the big companies. I mean, I wouldn't try and do it with Joe Bloggs, the small business owner, because he'll jump over and kick the crap out of you because, that's his livelihood. But if it's, my brother works in Carphone Warehouse and they've had people, at one point, he was in the big one in the Trafford Centre in the Manchester. He's not there now, but they've had people in there, stood there, kicking the mounts to get the phones off the mounts to sample. And they are literally told to just stand back. And that's not like an isolated store. These guys have had to get to the Trafford Centre, which is a supermarket out. You have to travel to it. You've got to go in through entrances. It's in an actual shopping mall and then into the store. And the amount of security there is unreal because terror threats. Yet they can do this and walk out.
Yeah, and they'll walk out through layers of security, the shop security, the centre security. Nobody's going to stop them. Nobody has been stopping them. And yet, we've all seen these videos that are happening. I don't seem to... and you've got that idiot on the back of the bus with a knife. Why is that not all over the papers? Why are they not talking about that? Why is that acceptable in central London, the capital of the UK? That is That is that's a fucking advert for us, is it? That's what we want tourists to see.
Yeah, exactly.
Please come to London and see a guy hanging off the bus, right? What's next? The sightseeing bus behind it. There's a guy hanging off it with a machete. That surely we're not there yet.
We're at, well, have you seen the guys on the £1,000 electric bikes that are then snatching mobile phones as they go past?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm all for encouraging don't walk around on your phone. There'll be a video coming out soon about situational awareness, so don't do that anyway. But it's just insane.
On that subject, they used to do it and still do it to an extent on mopeds. So the police were told, nudge them, bump them off the bike, arrest them, and we're going to stop it. So they did it. Then the coppers got in trouble for the first one that fell off the bloody bike, and then the coppers were looking at a disciplinary. So what chance have we got? We want robust policing, but if you're actually robust and do what you're told, we're going to screw you over.
Yeah, they're literally trained and told not to chase motorbikes now because it's too dangerous for the motorbike rider. If he's doing 120 on the motorway and a cop starts chasing him, it's too dangerous for him, so don't chase him.
Nah, chase him. I could always use a new set of kidneys.
It's madness. We protect criminals more than we protect our veterans, for God's sake. It's just insane. Sorry, guys, I really can't keep up with the comments. So if I miss most of them, then I'm sorry. There's 68 of you in here. I'm not used to this, but do you think this is going to? I mean, the original question about the machete before I showed you the hitchhiker was: do you think it's going to cause a ban? Do you think they're going to get stricter with it?
Well, let's take him at his word today. Which, being a politician, that'll be a surprise. He did say we do not need. Call me cynical. They do not need new legislation. They just need to enforce existing legislation. Right? Okay. If that's the case, you can have these things. You can have a crossbow. You can have a machete. Right? But that comes with responsibility. And back to what I said earlier, don't be a dick. You shouldn't be walking around a public place with a knife. There's no reason to do that. Reasonable excuse for all of these things. You shouldn't have a public a crossbow and do something stupid with it that could harm somebody. Yeah, that's a fair point. Kitchen knives. At what point do you stop banning things that could cause harm? Catapults, right?
Yeah.
Oh no, there's a guy tooled up with an egg whisk.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, you're never going to do it. A car is a deadly weapon. There's no end to that. It's not possible. If you're trained right, your fists are a deadly weapon. So it's
they were using bleach for a while, drain cleaner.
Yeah. It's just madness. But you say there's no reason to carry anything, but the more I see going on, if that was my town, if that was my doorstep, if I lived where them gangs are out there every day with them machetes, would I feel safer carrying one myself, even as a law-abiding citizen?
I think you're more likely to be a statistic than helped by it. Whether you fall foul of the law and it impacts on your kids not seeing you because Mike's in the pokey with Bubba, making friends, it doesn't help you. We need to get the system sorted, right? If you fuck up, you go to court, you go to jail. The way we've got it now, somebody could be done for GBH, cops lift them, you get charged, bailed, you're out in the street. They're doing the same thing again the next day. There's no deterrent. They don't give a shit. And there's not enough spaces on remand and in the jails to do something about it. It's not that the cops are trying to do a bad job. They're trying to do a good job for the most part. They're lifting these people, and then the courts are either bailing them or shit sentences, or we don't have the jail space to do anything about it. Where's the deterrent, Mike?
Shoot on sight.
Possibly a tad too far in another direction, can I suggest?
All right, sorry.
just a smidge,
So I'll never run for office.
Vote for Mike.
Vote for Mike. Shoot on sight. There you go. It's a good. couple of comments now. Steve Alden, police not allowed to go after brown people. Fact. It's unfortunately, I don't think it's a fact, but it definitely seems to be a worry as a copper. You know what I mean? And that's probably not a one-way street. If you were a Sikh police officer, then and you collar somebody a right-wing protester, you could get the same sort of backlash. So they're all, unless they literally, I mean, I think the guy in the airport was heat of the moment and it was him or me sort of thing, and it's adrenaline, and you're always going to get them. But if they're rationally thinking, I'd be scared as a policeman to, if that was my livelihood and that was feeding my family, that job, to do anything.
You can't do anything they do. Keir Starmer says we want robust policing. He had robust policing. Guy was getting attacked on all sides by assholes for nothing. He safeguarded his firearm, and he didn't know there was going to be another couple jumping on him from side to side. Side to side. He to make sure that guy wasn't getting back up. Choice one, he shoots him, right? Bearing in mind, he doesn't know if he was going to get attacked again from behind, from his perspective. So he could either shoot him, or he aggressively puts them down and dominates the ground in a situation. That's robust policing. That's what the guy did.
Yeah. But as soon as you prosecute him, every single officer that's seen that will not do it next time when it matters.
Yes. So we're back to square one again.
Yeah, we're going in circles. Groundhog Day, original music productions. Excellent. Better to be caught with it than without it. I mean, I think that's the mentality of the people.
I'm all for contraceptives.
I don't think it's contraceptives, but seriously, if you live in these areas where these gangs roam around with them, that would be the mentality I would have. And that's probably making that situation 10 times worse, right?
I'd move.
Yeah, but I mean, for some people, that's not an option. For some people, it's, you know.
Adding fuel to the fire doesn't help the situation. That's the problem. If you're tooled up and there's another six are tooled up, that doesn't help you. You're still going to die, right? So rather than that, and everybody's gone out armed to the teeth like Johnny Rambo with steak knives, I would suggest that they probably want to get tougher on knife crime for a start. Most of the crimes in the UK are knives. It's a fact. It's not firearms, certainly not crossbows, right? People are getting stabbed daily, wholesale, slaughtered in the capital.
Yeah,
I don't see that all over.
It happened round the corner. Somebody was stabbed like yesterday. It was on the local. You know, you have your local Facebook groups for your area, and that's the only news I saw of it. It's not on the Manchester news. It's not anything like that, and it's just happening all over the place to the point that they're not even reported anymore. That's how common it's becoming.
We had an event with work about a year ago, and we were in Edinburgh at the Omni Centre, and we were sitting outside Spoons in the sunshine, not a care in the world. Next minute, a police van drives right onto the curb in a busy area, and we looked around the corners and the guy bleeding out on the ground. About 5 minutes before that, somebody had stabbed the guy, who incidentally died, right? And they cordoned it all off later on, and there was an off-duty doctor and a nurse trying to save the guy's life. But he got stabbed and died, and then somebody else got stabbed and ran away, and they lived. But that was about 4 o'clock on a Friday, middle of summer.
Madness.
They don't care. They don't give a shit because there's no deterrent.
Yeah, it's not avoid dark alleys. That's irrelevant now. It's broad daylight and stuff like that. Joe Cox said, sad to say, my husband used to work at a supermarket as a security guard. He attempted to apprehend a thief and had his nose and fingers broke. The thief got away with it, and her hubby was told off. There you go. And the next time, he just won't chase it. You know, the security guards are just there for sure. So
I hope your hubby's feeling better.
Yeah, Kelly. The thing is, who'd be a security guard or a police officer? They don't pay them enough for the risk they're at the moment.
No, not
Kelly, guns, knives, machetes, crossbows. It doesn't make one iota of difference. It's not the weapon that's a problem. It's the type of person wielding it. That is 100% correct. 100% logical, but the government can't work with that when it comes to statistics and numbers. So they have to seem like they're doing so much. So that's where your bans come in.
You can't legislate for arseholes.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Can we have like IQ tests before you buy a kitchen knife? I don't know if that'll work. Personality test.
Let's make it even easier, right? If you're caught in the street with a knife that can't fold, and it's over 2 inches, you're going to jail, right? No ifs or buts. You're going to jail.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. It's what it should be, but maybe that's why they're building these new super prisons, apparently. Elaine says, I'm an ex-prison custody officer. The cases I used to hear would make you mad. Example, someone took a sandwich which a top store threw away. He got charged with theft and got a fine. Yeah.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. Marks and Spencer's. I used to, when I did joinery, I was doing shuttering out the back of a Marks and Spencer's, and they were tipping away food that didn't go out of date till the next day. Whole chickens, sandwiches, stuff like that. And they had padlocks and stuff on the bins. And instead of giving that to a homeless shelter, stuff like that, they literally prosecuted you if you touched the bins. Madness. Spend millions importing, and then you turn and spend millions more deporting, create the problem, restore the problem. There you go. This is it.
Totally right. There's no deterrent there. So if you know you're coming over illegally and you're going to a 5-star hotel or whatever, yeah, that's not much of a deterrent, is it?
Yeah. What did you think when the airport boy lawyer said no excuse for a head kick? What about when 9 children and women are being attacked with a kitchen knife? Yeah. I mean, that lawyer saying there's no excuse for a head kick is...
I disagree.
I kind of agree that it's a dangerous thing to do, and there is other methods. But what I will say, if you were in that situation and that's the best way to subdue them, would you take the risk of doing something less?
No.
Exactly.
I think what people are falling up, that they're not really embracing the concept that we know with hindsight what happened. We've got a bird's eye view of what he couldn't see, right?
Mm-hmm.
All that poor sod knew was he turned his back to help another officer who was getting punched up and down the place for nothing. He had to safeguard a firearm on his hip and a taser on his waist, his front, right? And then he's getting punched to bits from... What's this?
Carry on. It's okay.
He's getting attacked from behind. He hasn't got a clue if it's only that guy and that guy or another 10 waiting in the wings. But what he does know is he's fallen back, somebody brushes his firearm, right? He didn't know somebody tasered him. We know that. We could see it. He couldn't see. So when he does regain his footing, he's got a split-second choice to make that's career-ending and life-changing potentially. All he does know is he's been attacked. And he made a judgment call to put the guy down and keep him down, which did involve pulling a trigger.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with it, mate. I really don't.
No, I get that. Johnny made a good point. There was 17. I read some stats not so long ago, and they were saying there had been 25 stabbings in the last 4 days or something like that. And that wasn't include the one I read yesterday, so that's another one on top of that. But 17 stabbings in the last 48 hours. In the last 10 years, only 10 deaths by crossbow. Yeah, and yet that's the one they're gonna ban. It's not the weapons. It's not that. It's the people. I even think when Dunblane happened, which was a tragedy, banning handguns wasn't the right move.
The problem with banning handguns was Thomas Hamilton that did it was known to the police. There wasn't a problem with the legislation. There was a problem with enforcing the legislation and checks that were there. That was a problem. And the government of the day had to be seen to doing something. And they did. And crossbows it's to be seen to be doing something. What's the lesser of the two evils? Do you want to tell Joe Public, who might not know, that 24 people have been killed in the last couple of days, right? And incidentally, we've done fuck all about it, right? But don't worry, one or two people, tragic as it is, right? Let's not take that away from them. Tragic that it is, have been shot with a crossbow and killed. 10 in 10 years. Let's go with the lesser problem that's easy to deal with, because there's less crossbows. It's already heavily legislated. How are you going to legislate for kitchen knives and things? It's a minefield. So they'll go with the quick one.
Yeah. There's no winning as far as I'm concerned. Original music production is touching on what I want to go on to before we close, because we've passed the hour mark, but it's one of those topics that you could probably go on for a while. He said, "Wild, I'm absolutely raging since Monday. Everybody I know wants to riot. My pals were saying, let's go to George Square and cause it today." Now, what I read... Yeah, well, this is it. We don't incite violence in any way, shape, or form. We don't encourage it in any way. And what I read today was organisers responsible for encouraging people to attend recent riot in Southport appear to be attempting to seed unrest in cities across the country through a network of anonymous TikTok profiles. Now, so I'm in two minds with all this of who's inciting these riots. I don't think the Southport one was incited. I think it was angry residents at a tragedy. Looking for somebody to blame, and understandably so. So I don't think it was incited. Now, one of the major news outlets quoted that the EDL were involved. For anyone that doesn't know, the EDL is the English Defence League, which is a very far right-wing party that doesn't exist anymore. It is no longer a thing. But as soon as they throw that into a news article, everybody involved in Southport is then stamped with a right wing. Anybody who dares to have a St. George's cross or wear an England shirt when the football has finished is suddenly branded. And I don't think it's incited like that. And yeah, nobody should go out and do these, but the protests, I would encourage people to go out and demonstrate. That's the only thing I will ever do. I'll never incite violence, but demonstrate. We need to be heard. I don't know how else to fix this. I don't know how the country fixes this. And the amount of violence we've seen in the last week alone, if that's going to spur me to go and buy body armor, which I've not had for 20 years, then, where's it going?
To hell in a handbasket. You've got a lot of uncertainty in the world and a lot of unhappy people. They're not happy with their life, with their lot, with the way the country's going. They're just not happy. And it doesn't take much of a spark to ignite that tinder. And it's people will take advantage of that, unfortunately.
Yeah. Kelly I said, don't riot. That's playing into their hands. Go and protest by all means. If enough people go out and protest peacefully, they should have to take notice. Yeah, well, this is it. And don't go and throw paint over Stonehenge. We are not stop oil protesters. Don't destroy our own country to make a point. It's not just violence we don't want to see. We don't want to see people destroying monuments and architecture and crap that's, it's just stupid.
And let's not forget, there's 3 little people not here anymore. And their families are grieving, and this shit doesn't help, right? It really doesn't help.
No, but it's the preventative we need to be looking at. That's it. There you go. The media is saying that it's EDL linked because they don't want to admit that it isn't. This is the fear. The fear in the media is these are normal people. These are average, law-abiding citizens that are just pissed off.
You can't, the media and the government and everybody else, they cannot possibly admit that it could be a spontaneous activity because people have reached a boiling point and frustrated with tragedy. That's not going to be admitted. However, it's very easy to demonize somebody else to drown out the message.
Yeah. What's this?
But
Katie Hopkins was given out false information and gave a name that wasn't true. Yeah. The thing is, right, so right-wing or left-wing celebrities just stir the pot because they stir the pot and they step back. Yeah, no matter which side of the fence they're on, the people that do that kind of post are never in the thick of it, and they're never on the front lines, and they're never the ones that are actually suffering. You know, Katie Hopkins hasn't had to sit there and count up what money's left to see if she can get a loaf of bread 2 days before payday. I guarantee you. Yeah, they're never on the front line of any of this stuff. So take everything with a pinch of salt. It's the media jumps on what they want and they make that something it's not. Like, a school kid gets bullied by another school kid, which is a completely innocent everyday situation. Not innocent, but everyday situation that happens and should be dealt with. But as soon as there's race involved, the entire media blow it out of proportion.
It does make me think, though. I liked your video the other day about the Blitz and the mentality and the hope and belief that when things go wrong, and if there was a societal collapse or a disaster, that everybody will get round together and it'll be the old Blitz spirit and it'll all be fine and there's good people in the world. Yeah, I would like to think that. I really don't think that's the case, because you'll have the exploiting element that you see causing all sorts of shit. And the riot van's been set in flames. The horde are screaming, people baying for blood, flinging things and looking for trouble. I'm more inclined to think that's the sort of shit you would find as the norm, rather than people coming around with a cup of hot Joe and a pat in the back and things are going to be all right and blighty. I don't think so. I would like to. I would like to think it would be, but I don't think so. I think we've got a selfish society, mate.
But have we been pushed to this boiling point as a society because we've been so blasé and passive about everything else? For the last 20 years, we've sat back and took everything the government's thrown at us. Yes, sir. Please, sir. 3 bags full. Please don't tax me anymore, sir.
I think there's an element of that. I think that you've got a situation that people have absolved themselves of most personal responsibility. It's the council's job to do this. It's the social work's job to do that. It's the NHS's job to do that. It's always somebody else's job. So their kids are a little shit at school. It's the teacher's fault. No, it's your fault, because you've got to teach them right and wrong before they get to the bloody school. People have got rights and responsibilities that they're all too quick to give away and let somebody else fix it, rather than taking personal ownership and responsibility. And that's the biggest problem, I think, over the last 30 fucking years.
Yeah, definitely. Question for you, Brian. What do you think will be the outcome in 5 years or less? Where do you see this going?
Of society in general, or?
Of, the UK. The UK, society, policing, these riots, this completely adequate, really responsible, achieving Lord's government that we voted in.
Mr. Fear Warmer. Well, I don't know, mate. There's a lot of things juggling at the moment. It's a big question. But let's just say we'll do the bullet points. We've got a society that's not a happy hamster, and that's across Europe. You've got a war in Europe. You've got multiple wars and flashpoints in the Middle East. You've got flashpoints in Asia between Taiwan and China. In between that, you've got creaking infrastructure, right? So pick one or any of them and then try and think where we'll be in the next 5 years. There's so many tinderboxes at the moment, and somebody's flicking the lighter as we speak. So, honest answer, I don't know. Any one of them could be a major problem for all of us. So, if we do the basics that we talk about and we're preps that we went on about forever, then hopefully we'll get through anything that will come in the next 5 years. That's why we're here talking. That's why we've got to be prepared.
Yeah.
Just keep doing what you're doing.
I definitely don't think my one prediction is in 4 years, 3 years, 2 years' time, we will not have the same prime minister. He's not going to manage a full term. It's just, One thing I didn't like about his question and answer thing was it was all scripted.
Yeah,
it wasn't a case of who had your hand up. It was like, this is the question I've got next. And he said his answer with no rebuttal, no questioning, no nothing. Some of them he didn't answer. He did the usual politician thing. just skirted around it. So I just don't like that. He's the guy. I've not seen him do a competent debate. I've not seen him, zero passion with the guy. Anyway, another question. Mike and Brian, what's your thoughts on security in schools? Locked doors, metal detection, one security guard. I'll go on the fact that when I was at school, we had riots yearly, right? And these were not always like any sort of race related. Sometimes we had 2 years that had red jumpers and 3 years that had black jumpers. And sometimes it was a riot of red jumpers versus black jumpers. It was just kids rioting all the time. But we didn't have security. We just had teachers and PE teachers or games teachers who didn't give a toss, who would go in there and quite happily drop kick you to stop you rioting. So, good old days. Throw a blackboard rubber across the room. But again, I think teachers have to have the same kid gloves as police do now, and they can't say anything. They can't do anything in risk of being accused of everything. So maybe security is the only way forward. I know when I went to visit my school, when I first moved back to the Northwest, there was spiked green fences everywhere. It looked like a prison from the outside. I don't know why that's to keep the kids in or keep people out. I have no idea. But what's your thoughts on that? Adding, like, we've seen it on American, like, public schools, right, where they've got metal detectors and stuff.
Most schools I go to, I'm trying the best way to put this. Some of the jobs that I'll do on a day-to-day basis will involve going into schools to look at different things, and most of them have got a two-stage intercom system that you've got to be buzzed in the front door, then you'd be buzzed in the second door. The doors are all locked. We've got a reasonable security apparatus at the moment for a lot of schools that I've gone to. I don't think we're at the stage that we need metal detectors and security guards yet. Well, I'll qualify that. Where I live, I don't live in central London or South London, where there may very well be a case for this. Because if you've got that number of stabbings and knife crime, then it's got to be a situational dependent thing. It's got to be a risk assessment. It can't be one size fits all, because we don't all live in crime-free areas or where there's an issue with knife crime or culture. So in London, it might be the case that they do have to do something like this. But touch wood, where I am at the moment, then I don't think we're there yet.
Yeah, hopefully it's not something they roll across nationwide. Miss Worm makes a good point on it. Don't normalise the idea of violence in kids' heads. You don't want to have to explain to kids at a young age why they've got to go through a metal detector and why they can't have a metal spoon with their yogurt. It's just...
I agree with that to an extent. It's to make them aware but not fearful. But with the same token, they're 6 and 7 years old and they're getting told about it's okay to be a toaster or fuck knows whatever else they're doing these days. It's this sex education to a 6 or a 7 year old, and it's okay to chop bits off yourself and think it's bullshit.
Yeah.
But you can't tell them that there's a threat out there with nutters and don't get in somebody's car. Christ, when I grew up with cartoons, Charlie Says.
Yeah. Yeah. They had TV when you grew up?
Yeah, it was black and white, mate.
All right.
3 channels as well.
Yeah, and it stopped at a certain time and you just had teletext.
Yeah, that was it. The good old days. You would watch the dot at 12 o'clock.
I'm going to skirt over this really quickly, but just because it piqued my interest, I have no idea what he's on about. But Paul Thomas said, if a scientist in 1976 is right, we've only got 3 years left on the planet. Do you know what he's referring to?
I have no idea, but if he wants to embellish that, let us know.
Yeah, definitely. Paul, give us some more details there. I'm really curious about that one.
Because I might have to stockpile Pepsi for 3 years.
I live in a village with a primary school. A few months back, they were doing lockdown training with all of the alarms going off. Sad times. Yeah. I'm kind of with Brian on this one. I don't like the idea of normalizing any sort of violence. My boys are too young, even now. I teach them how to look after themselves and, what could be considered dangerous, but I don't teach them stuff like that. But as soon as they're older, as soon as they're going into secondary school, one of the things in their bag will be a wooden wedge. You know, it's not an offensive weapon. It's a little piece of wood like this, cheese shaped, and just to take that in school. Because if anything happens in a school and you can get into a room and wedge that under the door, you're probably safer than just putting a lock on or anything like that. It's one of the strongest preps you could give them.
What we're talking about, making the kids fearful, like say, it's an evolving risk that changes by the times. When I was growing up, you had like the cartoon telling you, Charlie says, don't jump in a car with Roger the nonce, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now we've got, whilst those risks are still there, they're more out in the open. And the violence risk and, potential lockdowns in schools, whilst we don't want to talk about it and we might not want to face it, it's probably better to have the conversation than the results of not having it. It's a shit sandwich, but if your area and where you live, it's common sense to have that, then it's a shit conversation that we should be having.
Yeah, definitely. It's not something you want to be doing, is it?
No.
KK 2024 says, sounds stupid, but if you watch Bug's Life, the government reminds me of the grasshoppers, but the ants won. I have watched, definitely. Keir Starmer, the grasshopper. There we go.
Quite a good analogy. I like that.
Can always trust Disney to predict the future. That and The Simpsons. 2 seconds. I'm just trying to get through these comments as well. I know people won't like this, but sit-down protests with very thought-provoking signs would be best. Yes, I mean, I'm all for peaceful demonstrations. It's probably the
Just
way.
Don't do it in the road.
Yeah, don't do it while I'm trying to get to work, because you will be my brakes test.
That key phrase that I mentioned a couple of times earlier, don't be a dick.
Yeah, that's it. That's literally, live your life by that one rule. Don't be a dick, and the world will be a nicer place.
It would though.
Oh, here we go. Paul Thomas is. It takes 50 years for the carbon to reach the ozone layer, and it was 10 years after he said that they found a hole in the ozone. Okay,
that's interesting. If you want to stick the scientist's name in the chat, I'd be interested in looking a bit into that later. That's good.
Yeah. Read into that. Yeah, might have to get the Factor 5000 sunscreen out.
Here's a dead sheet. Have a nice day.
Ozone layers, overrated. Have you seen? I've got the whitest legs in the world. I can tan everywhere but my legs. Even a no ozone layer wouldn't. Whatever my legs are made of would protect you. It's fine.
For the love of God, please don't show them in the camera. We've had enough shit tonight.
Miss Worm said it before. Please try not to swear in my stream. I'll just put. There we go.
Sorry.
No, I'm just the comments. That's a swear word. The pen is mightier than the sword. Church of the Camp of the Saints. I mean, sounds very Waco to me. The pen is mightier than the sword. The true sword is word, and it is for us to stand by them. I'll pre-warn you, the Church of Camp of Saints, I'm an atheist, so you'll get very few highlighted comments.
If you believe in a certain religion that doesn't harm or hinder other people, crack on. I've got nothing but if you want to do that, it's not an issue.
Yeah. So everybody but the Sith.
No. Like a red lightsaber and
everything. I think we're coming to the end of the comments anyway. JD, just come in like an hour and 20 minutes in. You've missed everything, JD.
You're a terrible person. We were waiting.
There we go. Removed from history. I've tried finding it, but the 1986 can be found on the net.
That's not shifting.
Okay. Have you looked on the other internet, Paul? I'll have a look.
And that's when Paul ended up in a register.
I hate religion. It divides people. Well, I mean, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. I do envy religious people. I'll tell you that now. If I had true faith, then I would have no fear of dying and I would be much happier. But as it stands, I'm completely paranoid about everything and, you know, a crazy ass prepper. So there you go. Is that it? Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I think we'll call it, Brian, because otherwise we're going to be on here all night. I really appreciate the amount of people that have come in and got involved in the conversation. It was just an excuse for us to come on and rant, really. So thanks for coming along for the ride. I did get a ping on PayPal, but it didn't tell me a name. So I appreciate whoever did donate during the stream. Really appreciate it, because we definitely can't monetize this one. Would you like to say your goodbyes or any final thoughts, Brian?
Goodbyes. Final thoughts. Don't be a dick.
I knew that was coming. Yep, for me, thank you for joining us, guys. I do really appreciate all of you. Don't forget to hit like on your way out, leave a comment on the actual video once it's published, and if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. We're not all doom and gloom, honestly, I promise. See you in the next one. Bye.